You ever have that one moment where you realize everyone around you made a colossal mistake, but you're the only one smart enough to see it coming? That was me, standing at the edge of a freshly built suburban paradise, manicured lawns, shiny new houses, white picket fences, all built on my land. Not theirs. Not the HOA's. Mine. And the best part? They had no idea. It started 3 years ago, when my late grandfather's 42-acre farmland was passed down to me. Everyone thought it was worthless, just overgrown weeds, a broken fence, and a rusted-out barn that looked like it would collapse with one strong wind. Developers had come by before, throwing around offers, but Grandpa always said, "Never sell to snakes." I didn't understand what he meant, until I met the HOA board from Maple Creek Estates. They showed up one morning with shiny shoes and bigger egos. The president, a smug guy named Clark, smiled like a used car salesman and said, "We're expanding the community. Your land is part of our new phase, Phase 4. You'll be compensated." His tone made it clear it wasn't a request. It was an announcement. I asked to see the documents proving they own the land. He waved some papers in my face, said everything was zoned and approved. But something didn't sit right. My gut said he was bluffing. So I smiled back and said, "Sure, go ahead." From that moment, I played the long game. They started construction a month later. Bulldozers flattened the fields where I used to chase chickens as a kid. They cut down the old oak tree where my grandpa hung a swing for me. It hurt to watch, but I stayed quiet. Every time they poured concrete or framed a new house, I took photos. Every permit notice, every boundary marker, every drone shot, I documented it all. The HOA was so busy congratulating themselves that they never noticed the one crucial thing missing, the transfer of title. They never bought my land. They just assumed the county had approved the zoning. But see, Grandpa had filed a private deed protection clause back in 1981, meaning no one could build or subdivide the land without the owner's explicit written consent. And that owner was me. 2 years later, the place was unrecognizable. 96 brand new homes, filled with smiling families, who had no idea they were technically squatting on private property. The HOA started enforcing their ridiculous rules. $50 fines for wrong mailbox color, $100 for leaving trash bins out too long. And then came the kicker. They sent me a notice for having a derelict structure on community land. The old barn. My barn. I laughed so hard I almost fell out of my chair. That's when I knew it was time. I went straight to my lawyer, old Mr. Daniels, same guy who handled my grandfather's will. When I laid out all the photos, the deed, and the timeline, he looked at me like I'd just handed him the Holy Grail. "Son," he said, "this is going to be one hell of a case." We filed the lawsuit quietly. No threats, no warnings. Just a neat little envelope served straight to the HOA president's doorstep. Within a week, the neighborhood was in chaos. Homeowners were calling emergency meetings, board members were panicking, and Clark, Mr. Shiny Shoes himself, tried to act like it was all a misunderstanding. But in court, there's no bluffing. I remember the day like it was yesterday. The HOA's lawyer went on and on about community investment, infrastructure, and good faith development. When it was my turn, I stood up, pulled out the original deed, and handed it to the judge. "Your Honor," I said, "this land was never sold, never transferred, and never approved for construction. Every home standing there right now is illegally built on my property." The courtroom went silent. You could hear a pin drop. The judge examined the papers, then looked at the HOA's attorney and said, "He's right." Clark's face turned the color of expired milk. Within minutes, the HOA's entire defense crumbled. Turns out, their surveyor had misread the boundary lines, And the county approval they bragged about? It was for the neighboring parcel, not mine. The fallout was legendary. News outlets called it the Maple Creek mix-up. The HOA tried to negotiate, offering me millions to transfer ownership retroactively. But I refused. I didn't want their money. I wanted justice. So, I let the court's decision stand. Every single home, all 96 of them, sat illegally on private property. Here's the fun part. Since I now legally owned all improvements made on my land, guess who owned the houses? Me. Every driveway, every fence, every manicured lawn, all mine. The HOA was forced to dissolve, and the homeowners? Well, most ended up buying their homes again, this time from me, at fair market value. A few couldn't afford it, so they packed up and left. When Clark showed up at my door, red-eyed and desperate, begging for some kind of deal, I simply smiled and said, "You remember when you told me my land was part of your expansion? Turns out, your expansion is part of my land." 6 months later, I sold half the homes and kept the rest as rentals. That old, worthless farm, it turned into a multi-million-dollar estate portfolio. I even rebuilt the barn, restored the swing under the oak, and put up a sign at the gate that read, "Never underestimate the quiet guy with the deed." So yeah, the HOA put 96 homes on my land. I let them build, I let them celebrate, and when the time was right, I let the law do the talking. My grandpa was right. Never sell to snakes. Sometimes, you just let them build their own pit first.